Hi, this is my final reflection and evaluation for my coursework. So, first of all, I have to say that this course has really pushed me in ways I did not anticipate being pushed. But I felt that the outcome at the very end was very successful and I learned a lot. My final MMP project, let's first of all talk about the project proposal. My original idea was to create a website that I felt could assist students in the communications department at Bloomfield College. Um, I wanted a central website. My original idea was to create something that could help them with their work for various courses, as well as provide a location to show off their work and maybe provide a forum for student discussion, debate, and news. Now, I ended up dropping the whole centralized forum thing for the student discussion. I mean, they have Blackboard, which is sort of like e-college, and there's ways they can do that already. But I did feel like the whole thing of showcasing their work and providing information for courses and, all that kind of thing was important. So I retained A and B, I dropped C. The reasons for the project, I felt, and I still feel, there's a deep disconnect between not only what most people or the general public use as far as multimedia tools and knowledge and what is needed in the classroom and access to what's needed in the classroom. And I still feel like that's the case. I think there's still a gap in knowledge between, okay, you have these tools, how are you actually going to use them? How can they be used in classroom work? And that's not all the students' fault. I think there's a disconnect in terms of the information, how those tools are implemented into classwork. When we had to put together our toolkit, one of the things that I said was that I noticed that, there's really not a discussion as far as, okay, we're going to take these elements and this is how you're going to use them in your classwork. Okay. And I think the faculty needs an updating on this as well as the students. It's not that people are anti-technology, as I say here. It's more a matter of familiarity and sufficient time to acclimate and learn new systems and really fully utilize them, and be encouraged to use them. I can tell you as an adjunct, we're kind of on our own. Yes, we have to use Blackboard, which is like e-college, to, do grading and all that kind of thing. But there's nothing where you get a workshop that says, okay, we're going to use XYZ and this is how to use it. So with all that said, that was my idea for the project. Okay. And I have to say that the readings were spectacular in pushing me to think about new things. In terms of shape and form, in terms of using new kinds of forms of multimedia, new platforms, and just in terms of thinking about things. The mini art school exercises, a little scary for me, doing all these kinds of things and using these new programs. But it pushed me, and I had to think about these things. And I had to think about things I had never thought about before. Color, pattern, fonts, borders, how to actually put together a poster, and how just to think in terms of visuals. I go back to the reading at the beginning of the semester, and I think it was the Peterson reading, which, on hindsight, a lot of the stuff in hindsight, you realize like, oh, okay, it does make sense. Where Peterson was saying that, visuals alone can be deceiving. It's not enough, however, to study visuals only. You need to consider and study combined messages. And I think that's something that I had to constantly remind myself of as I was creating my website. You can't just think about the text. You can't just think about the visuals. It's how it all works together. So that was particularly good for me. I also think the daily reading, yes, here, where Daly was talking about the very vocabulary of multimedia encourages approaches different from those used to write text. And again, it's a whole different way of thinking. And I think that's one of the things that this work of this semester really pushed me. I had to really push myself to think differently. And so, when I got up here to the reflection for the semester, the first one, where was it? I had to really sort of say to myself, like, okay, you know what? I really am starting to think differently. Yeah, here. And as I said, probably the most telling part of this particular reflection post is that I did the graphic first, and then I did the words. Well, usually I would do the words first, and then try to put together some sort of visual. So I think that just shows, how my thinking had changed by this midpoint. Even in terms of the fonts and what do the fonts say, the use of space and the shapes and color and form. All right. So let's look at my project. Now, my first attempt was here, and it was on WordPress. It was okay. It was all right. This was my first attempt. I was kind of happy with it. I mean, from my perspective as a text person, it seemed okay. Then I talked to some of my students, and they were like, it looks a little blah. And they were right. There wasn't really any color. It was very flat looking. Now that I'm looking at it now, it's very flat. For me, it had a lot of, the information. It had the feeds for the different news sites and all of that kind of thing. But again, it was like very text driven, which was my way of thinking. So after talking to some of my students, and I got feedback from my colleagues as well, who sort of said the same thing, I was like, okay, we're going to totally revamp. So I totally changed the look. I changed even the platform I was using, because this was WordPress. And so here was my final site. Ta-da! Bright red, right? So first of all, lots of color. This is on Wix instead of WordPress. The red corresponds to the school colors. And so what I tried to do is, based on what my students had said, because they kept on saying, we really need a place for us to showcase our work. So I was like, okay, we'll put that on top. And I think the final project that I came up with is a success. I think it successfully marries the needs of the students with what I felt was important, but I think it puts the students' needs first. And I think that's something that I had to constantly think about. And I also had to think about, in terms of my audience, what was going to appeal to them, what was going to appeal to their eye. And I had to constantly think that way. So hence the color. I looked even in terms of the font that I used throughout. I wanted something that looked official but not too stodgy. So, even with the font, you'll notice here, I tried to be creative in terms of the use of things like, here's a slideshow, and these would be featured student photos here that they've taken, featured student story. I put this on top. Instead of putting the information about the page on top, I put their work on top. Okay? And then I put the information stuff more towards the bottom. All right? So then here I also tried to do sort of slightly different pages based on what I felt they needed. They said that they wanted something that showcased their work. So I really tried to stick to that. So I have a page for stories. All the work is really mine, by the way. I didn't have permission to do their stuff, so I put my stuff in here. But here's a space for stories. And then down below, there's information how to get your story posted here. There's links to other student stories, so that, somebody could really come in here, put some work on here, and have something for their portfolio. For the student photos page, again, this would be another place for you to put your photos. I used a format that, somebody can easily click through and see different photos by students, and again, how to get your photos posted here. For the videos, same thing. Now, for the how-tos, I was adamant that the how-tos, and I put like a little animation here so that the hat spins in. For the how-tos, I wanted it to make sure that the students knew that, you still have to come to class. But here's where I could create using like the screencast that we had learned, and I actually put together lessons. So here I put together a lesson on how to write a news lead. And I actually take the students through, here's the information, how do you write the lead? How do you write the lead?
Hi,
What do
this
you
is
have to do
Professor Karen
first?
Collins with a how-to on how to write a story.
Okay, and in here I talk about how to edit a photo, and I take them
Hi,
through
this is
that,
Professor Karen Collins with a screencast on how to edit photos. When we're talking about
and how to download photos, the size, how to follow a beat with your blog. And this one on Final Cut Pro, I don't know how to do Final Cut Pro, so I got this from YouTube, but I felt it was important to put that in there because we do have broadcast students, so they need to have that. So, and again, the thinking being what's going to serve the students. Finally, over here, I changed this last button. This had originally was going to be dates, important dates, but then a couple of students said, we really need information on how to get internships. So I said, okay, you know what? Then we'll remake this page and make it about internships information. That's what we'll do here. Okay. And again, I tried to do a nice little slideshow with the photos to keep the images popping and it more intriguing. But I felt, okay, here's the basic information you need to know if you're doing an internship. And then here we've got lists of internship opportunities down here. I put some nice images on this side. And also with the websites as far as where they can find more internship opportunities. And again, it was all about really serving my audience. My audience really is the students, also the faculty, yes, but more so the students, because in talking to them, I felt like, there's not a lot for them, so we need to do more. I feel like my project was a success. I feel like I successfully met their needs. The feedback from the students has been tremendous. They were all like, yes, this is what we need. This is so great. We can definitely use this. I would love to see my work up here. I could put this link on my resume and somebody can see my work. So I felt mission accomplished, very much so. And I think the evidence is that I've had several students who have asked me now to present this, and I've presented it to our department chair, and she's looked at it. She likes the look of it as well. Of course, with a college, there's all these hoops you have to jump through to get anything approved and all of that kind of thing. The official, standards committee has to look at it, blah, blah, blah. But my department chair liked the look of it. She felt it was very successful. She was impressed by the fact that the students actually contacted her, some of them on their own, and said, hey, this is really good. Can we use this kind of thing? So I felt like my page, my creation is a success. As far as how I view the role of technology now, I view it totally differently. First of all, just in the way that I'm thinking about things, the way that I'm looking at things has totally changed. I'm looking at it now in terms of technology, not to be corny, but technology can be your friend. It doesn't have to be the enemy. It's not something to be looked at with suspicion. Here's just the information page for the department that I created. And you can have fun with it, which is not something that I was thinking about before. I did not think about technology and multimedia in terms of having fun. So now I'm thinking about it like, okay, I can have some fun with this. I can be a little creative here. Like down here, I was like, okay, I want several different photos, and I want the word puzzle in the middle, and there's our school seal and everything, and I can have a little bit of fun. And that's definitely not a word that I was associating with multimedia when we first started all of this. So in terms of how do I tend to market this, well, the first thing is I'm going to have to get approvals from my department chair, but I think that the vote of confidence from the students says everything, because as anyone knows, if the students are on board, then you're golden. And the students are definitely on board with this, and my department chair liked it. I've showed it to some other people in the department. They liked it. So I really feel good about what I was able to create, and I think I definitely came up with a successful project. So that's it. And thank you very much.